prime competitive Overwatch content right here. So the 6v6 test. What are people's opinions on the 6v6 test? How'd it go? I think it's been dumpstered by the big health pools. Don't get me wrong, I think the big health pools have screwed it in some way, shape or form. There's a give and take between the large health pools and the tank's ability, and therefore the tank's ability to exist and not get instantly blown up and be pissed off about that. And then the opposite of that, which is having lower health pools and have DPS pushed out less from angles. Now, I got into a couple of arguments on competitive Overwatch because the people in competitive Overwatch are... Oh, the people in competitive Overwatch are... you know, competitive Overwatch, the subreddit with the most survivorship bias in the world, because the only people in it are the people that are still into competitive Overwatch after all these years. So when they discuss balancing, everything's fine, it's fine, we don't need to worry, like the game is perfect, there's no problems whatsoever, etc, etc. One of them told me very authoritatively that tanks having bigger health pools does not reduce the amount of space that DPS have on the map. Now that was a take, I've got to say. Yeah, that was oh yeah, tanks having bigger health pools doesn't reduce the amount of space DPS have. Oh, all right, dude. Yeah, okay. Competitive Overwatch is a dumpster fire at the best of times. But I thought we'd go through a bit of the reception. So basically the reception is we won, guys. That's basically it. We won. It doesn't matter if they admit it or not. So we got one here, 2.1k upvotes. Overwatch memes. Me as a tank main having the most fun I've had in weeks playing Marvel Rivals and the 6v6 experiment. So that's a clear win. Everyone agrees here. What is this? This is 6v6 is so much less stressful. That's got mid hundreds of upvotes. Bear in mind that this is during the downturn of Overwatch, where Overwatch has less people commenting online specifically because quite a lot of people moved to Marvel Rivals, especially 6v6 supporters. So why would they be here commenting on r/Overwatch? It doesn't really make sense. So these are kind of like underrepresentative in numbers. 6v6 is a lot of fun, feels more fair than 5v5, 1k upvotes. 6v6 experiment has been the most fun I've had in ages, 2.2k. Basically, 6v6 is farming as a better format. Any Rivals Andy is automatically a 6v6 Andy. Yes, I feel like Rivals does not in any way make the most out of the 6v6 format, but yeah. Only played 5v5, but 6v6 is so much fun. I only went to 100, so that's a little bit of a smaller one. It's got not as much of a catchy title, I guess. 250 means you're a lot less likely to randomly die, to be honest. The health pools argument is a really difficult one, Blue, because 250 means you're a lot less likely to randomly die, but that's thinking about our scaling of hitboxes. So with the bigger hitboxes, the damage coming in is more consistent. Therefore, if you have higher damage but more consistent damage, you're after people spend the week adjusting, you're just as likely to not be randomly insta-killed by standing in the middle of nowhere, because it's more consistent, therefore more telegraphed, therefore you know what's coming into you, and there's no peaks and valleys that are going to chip you down from 100, right? So 250 health pools mean that people die slower or die less randomly? Yes, for about a week is the answer. For about a week until people adjust, but then realistically it doesn't make much of a difference. Is that a good post saying 6v6 is bad so we get to see the opposite side? Yeah, so we know all these arguments. I'm getting there, dude, don't worry. To be really effective, I have to be in the melee. Bigger hitboxes and DPS passes really fell. Oh, Moira's screwed at the moment, absolutely screwed. We watched a video from Arcs the other day, and he is done with Moira. He is an old GM Moira player. Yeah, he's done with Moira. It's ridiculous the amount of nerfs that Moira has got over time through the DPS passives and the hitbox increases and the health increases. All of them reduce Moira's ability to do anything. Moira needs a rework? No, they just need to revert Season 9 in all forms of the game and let people cope for a week while they work out not to stand in the open for quite as long. He's been enjoying 6v6. I'm glad he's been enjoying 6v6. I haven't got around to talking to him for a while. I used to raid him back in the day in like 2018, so he probably still remembers more or less who I am. So we got, I don't understand why tank players don't like 6v6. So this is a random post. I don't know where they got this intention. 0, it got straight down voted to 0. Loads of comments. Everyone's just responding that they actually do. What are you talking about? This is Overwatch University. And then we have competitive Overwatch, right? Competitive Overwatch, the subreddit of survivorship bias, the subreddit of anyone that comes into our space and says anything bad about the game. Yeah, this is our game. Yeah, we like it. We still watch the competitive scene, therefore everything they're currently doing is good. So first off, DPS passive changes a lot in 6v6. I thought we'd discuss this. This is a less important one. Alex Cloudy doesn't like not being server admin anymore. Oh, cry me a river. You know, you're not 1.5 times as powerful as every other hero on the map. You'll have to learn to adapt. Okay, so this is DPS passive. It is good. Now, this is a competitive Overwatch take. Personally, I'd say just balance the healing. The DPS passive does nothing that balancing the healing doesn't do. We all know that when the DPS passive was put in, we all knew that. Balance the healing and everything will be fine is kind of like the default answer. Do DPS have a problem cutting through the health pools? Reduce the health pools so DPS are more sharp and less soft in their pressure. It's pretty damn simple, right? I don't want to whiteboard this. I don't want to explain it in full because I've already covered it a little bit. But essentially, what you're doing by increasing the health pools, increasing the hitbox sizes, you're making it more reliable for every single bullet to hit. Therefore, the peaks and valleys in damage is going to be lower. Therefore, people are going to die at random without getting to press their buttons a lot less. Therefore, DPS have a lot of power taken out of them. And all the DPS passive does is it cuts through the extra healing that they haven't reduced. That's basically all it does for the most part. I've never seen any tank complain about 6v6, well, apparently LH Cloudy is. Imagine if Blizzard came back after 3 weeks and says, well, nobody likes 6v6, so keeping things the same. Yeah, so here's an important one. I'm not playing 6v6. I'm not going to be propping up the tank numbers. I like tanking in 6v6 more than I like any other tanking in any game. I've never been a tank. I never will be a tank. But I do actually find 6v6 tanking quite fun. However, I am a competitive Andy. I do not care about any non-competitive mode. There are, I'd say, about 20% of the audience for any of these games are my type of person. If there's not a competitive rank put onto it, and I don't have the impression that people are trying their best, or the impression that if they don't try their best and they lose on my team, that they're losing SR as well, so at least there's that, I get unreasonably upset at the people on my team for being absolute idiots and me having a worse experience for it. So I'm a competitive Andy, always have been competitive Andy, since I was probably like 12, since competitive games were released, honestly. Since I got my first Call of Duty game, I've been every single competitive. So I'm not propping it up is the answer. I don't have the time. I'm obviously writing my Marvel Rivals critique. I'm doing a lot of writing, stuff like that. If this lives and dies, I guess the question, as we all gather, the question is, what are the queue times like, right? There you go. It's the queue times. The tanks are fine. They always were fine. If you just make the tank experience relatively good, everything will be okay. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. Make the tank experience okay, increase the amount of initiators so there's less double non-initiator pairing, stuff like that. Seems to work perfect. I'm going to drop my hot take of today. Hazard is an off tank and not an initiator. Yes, I think I agree with that. Though the lines are completely blurred, Hazard is much more likely to lunge at an off angle than they are to exist in the front line. But they do have a relatively good amount of initiation in the fact that if they get a good amount of resources while blocking in the front line or in the mid to just a little bit further forward than the front line without using their knife, they can initiate quite well by just using block into the enemy team with AoE damage. I'd say what's happened is that Overwatch 2 has spread out the gameplay field so much at the moment that what's essentially happened is that you cannot use that AoE without lunging at somebody in order to put pressure on them. Whereas in Overwatch 1, the game was a lot closer together because health pools sustain like that onto the tanks wasn't as high, so they couldn't walk straight through the front line and kill you, so people could stand a little bit closer. So essentially what's happened is that people are spreading out more, therefore you can't use your block as consistently in order to do that. I feel like I carried despite tanks a lot more in 5v5 versus 6v6. Well, that's another thing. Decrease independence is a true statement, right? It's not like that's crazy. I'm trying to get my lighting back to normal, but it's not working. Maybe I need to up you. Yeah, a bit better. Yeah, that's a true statement. There is a lower amount of players, so each individual player has more of an impact on the match. That's a no shit Sherlock kind of thing. Carry despite tanks. So his tanks are worse. I feel like quite a lot of this problem is just Roadhog. Roadhog and Sigma are the two characters that can create bad matchups. Obviously, we have the D.Va Zarya bad matchup still, and we have the Roadhog bad matchup. Right, so you have D.Va Zarya, and Roadhog, and these three don't combine. Very simple. I've obviously fixed Roadhog in my version and made it more of an off-tank slash poking tank and makes them combine perfectly. So these three are still degenerate combinations, exactly as I've said. And then you have Sigma D.Va and Sigma Zarya that are also degenerate combinations. So I'd say out of the total amount, what do we have? In terms of heroes, do we have 12 heroes? How many tanks do we have? Watch heroes. I don't actually know the number at the moment. 13? Yeah, so we've got 13. 12 plus 11 plus 10 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 78. So 78 there. That's the total combinations that we have in this format. So 78 combinations. And I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 6 combinations that are bad. These are always going to feel bad. There's nothing we can do about it. It's a difficult one. I feel like every single other combination has some form of initiation, like has a Doomfist, has initiation. If you have initiation, you don't really struggle too much. It's only the teams without strong initiation that have problems, in my opinion. So that's an issue, and that's something you can't get past. So Roadhog's still got to run amok, and Roadhog's a more popular character, so Roadhog's going to abuse the game. It's pretty simple. I think there are no longer 2 types of tanks. They've de-extremized the tank population. So before we had a cleaving, piercing tank with an initiation that's really bursty, that has a big cooldown when they jump in, and takes resources in a really good way, and can frontline and can exist on the point, and all of these points that are kind of tank-like and really soft pressures, they don't insta-kill people, and all of these tank points that are really like tank-like have been spread out throughout the cast, and there's no clear tank thing anymore, since the only commonality between all tanks is literally just they have bigger health pools. That's the only commonality, right? I think the idea is now you cooldown cycle using the cooldowns from 2 tanks rather than 1 giga tank. Yeah, I do think there's something lost by not extremizing the tanks and making it so they all have some aspects of tanking. There's a lot more single target tanks, and I do think that single target tanks are a lot more problematic than AoE tanks. I think single target tanks in particular really duel people out of angles in a way that AoE tanks don't. Do you still dislike charge cancel? Yes. I think that the people complaining about it are, for the most part, I think the people complaining about the lack of power steering being removed and stuff like that are, for the most part, just complainers. Can't imagine Rhyme without it as someone who started playing this year. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's risk-free pressure on a large distance away. It's one of those things, it's like Hazard Lunge, right? Hazard Lunge allows you to just immediately duel out a DPS in an angle any distance away from you. It allows you to just go, well, I'm here, I'm just gonna fucking yeet myself at you. If I have 75% health, I always win that duel and your life sucks. It's a very extreme single target hard pressure thing that forces the person to keep a cooldown in order to not die. Zarya and D.Va are single targets? Yes, Zarya and D.Va are single targets. I've always said that D.Va was more of a problematic character than Zarya by far, and was a lot more powerful than Zarya by far. I've always said that micro missiles were a little bit problematic to the kit, and I'd rather their power put into other parts of the kit and other things like that. If you were to choose one, would it be steering or cancel? It would definitely be cancel. But then again, I do think the game sped up to the point because of Juno and Lucio that maybe Reinhardt's just too slow without the cancel, right? Maybe he's just too slow. We'd have to balance other things around it. I'd rather buff his melee damage to 95 and remove the cancel if I could. If that was a reasonable balance, obviously it would have to be tested. Yeah, so the other comment is supports and supports heal botting, right? That's the other comment. What do people think about supports and the necessity of heal botting in 6v6? There's a lot of comments about it from competitive Overwatch. I don't think I actually have any there, but that's been a big topic, hasn't it? I'm gonna keep it real, Chief. I play support the same. Think heal botting should be an option up to mid rank? Well, this was always my argument that 5v5 made it so that heal botting is invalid, where 6v6 made it so that 6v6 makes it so that you can heal bot and keep a stable rank. In 5v5 you exclusively drop rank by heal botting. I think it's an expansion of the total space you can have to play in, right? Before you had healbot, and you had hard angle control, and you had DPS, and you had like DPS support, and you had like tank throughput, and now you have You just don't have this option. You can't just heal bot. You need to do damage. You need to put out pressure. Mercy Lifeweaver is now not troll. True. Yeah, no, true. Lifeweaver's never felt better. I agree. He needs 2 petals and 2 lunges, and less health and less seal on the lunges. And he'd be really fucking fun. It's that simple. My rework is so much fun in my opinion. Healbotting is fine as long as you're truly making decisions, but the healing like AoE healbotting is boring, but anti healbotting is just as engaging. Yes, 100%. We want meaningful decisions in where we put the support on our team, and we need that to matter. I think that the higher health pools on DPS have reduced how meaningful that decision is. It's made it more even in certain scenarios, whether you heal the DPS or you heal the tanks. Whereas before, if you heal the DPS in a duel, because the duel's a lot more sharp, providing that support at exactly the right time was more impactful, and therefore some of the lower healing sources were better on the DPS. I think it's hard to have skill expression in healbotting. I'd agree, but quite a lot of the healbot characters aren't just healbot, they're healbot plus a big burst of linear pressure. Either a reliever or they're a cancel on the enemy team. So like Nade Lamp, Healing Orb, stuff like that. And healbotting allows you to cycle ult a lot more fast and allows you to get a lot more control of the game through using ult. So that's a lot of skill expression that you have there, and it's very impactful skill expression. And that's one of the problems obviously Rivals have at the moment. Everyone has high throughput, therefore everyone's stealing healing off each other. There is no reason to realistically support angles. You may as well just farm and use your ult to be the most impactful that you can. People haven't really learned to +1 angles and do the throughput at the same time at the moment. And the fact that everyone can throughput obviously means that people are stealing healing off each other and not funneling it into one person like they do in Overwatch. Having more health pools is better for the game. I just wish that long range characters with mobility would drop to 225. Hanzo, Ash, Soda Reaper, May and Torb need to be 275 and not 300. I disagree, but I'm not gonna go back over it for the sense of that. I think it meaningfully changes the interactions that healing have between tanks and DPS. I think that's pretty clear to me. Okay, so yeah, healbotting, I do think you are more inclined to healbot, but I think that healbotting is actually a valid strategy, and I think that's good as a general thing into the game without pulling extreme angles and DPS in the enemy team backline. I like that personally, and every single coach everywhere has always told people not to healbot because you can get more control over the game through going on angles in the 6v6 mode regardless. That's another thing that's probably been reduced, the ability for through-to-put type healers like Ana Baptiste to control the game by going on angles, because the ability to get cheeky kills has been reduced because the health pools have been increased, so it's more predictable when the damage is coming into you and that sort of thing. Should I be healing more on Ana or telling more people to shut up? You can do both. DPS support is not dead, and that's the main thing to remember. I will say one person needs to heal. And here's the other thing, right? The reason why people are complaining about the necessity of heal botting is because previously Overwatch had a very healthy pool of players that were healers, right? They were healers from World of Warcraft, from other games, from MMOs, and they came to Overwatch to do healing and not interact with the hard as nails aiming system with instant acceleration, etc, etc. And then we went to Overwatch 2, and the ability to do that was completely removed. So what happened is those players fucking quit the game. So now if we want to go back to a more heal-botty style, there's going to be friction, because the type of people that play support aren't support players right now. They're DPS players that want a more powerful hero. So yeah, they're going to be more upset by not being able to always be on an off angle, murdering the entire enemy team, etc, etc. Yeah, top 500 flanking Ana called Various, and he solo lobby by flanking, just killing people 200 HPS. HP enables that, I agree. If you complain about the existence of sports, just play COD. Yep. Okay, yeah, I think that's fair enough. Let's go on. Bold prediction: tanks are gonna hate the 6v6 test. Here we go, prime competitive Overwatch content right here. This is prime content. We've already seen the reaction from actual Overwatch subreddits of people that play Overwatch and not people that just watch competitive Overwatch. After playing tank in 6v6, I can safely say tanks are gonna hate it outside of people with duos. Is it back to being a bonus role which relies heavily on synergy with your duo, which can be fun, but can also result in playing Ryan with a 1v7 hog makes it impossible to exist? So the answer is no. You idiots, what are you talking about? Jesus Christ, no. They're loving it. It's really good. It's really good. It's enjoyable. You know, you see that? It's good. They like it. They like it, guys. It's crazy to me. These people on a competitive Overwatch, it's insane. Next one. Ignoring 5v5, how do you think the 6v6 tech compared to Overwatch 1 6v6? So this is middle of the range upvotes, but the comments are quite funny. What's the 5v5 queues like? Interesting. Let's see what my... Well, this isn't representative because obviously this is the much higher role. But 1 minute tank in Diamond, 1 minute DPS in Plat may suggest that it's about the same for tank, right? Big talking point in the 66 discussion had been the format could have worked if the devs were actually willing to make aggressive changes. Any changes whatsoever, not aggressive changes. We didn't want the world. We wanted them to actually not be producing a PvE game, but okay. Not fully fleshed out, but it's significantly different than what exists. So ignoring 5v5, how do you think each version compares? It's actually interesting here because this is less of an inflammatory one. So maybe we'll get some interesting comments. More balanced in the support and DPS categories, but that's because of the new DPS passive forcing support to heal bot. I just disagree with that. That's not true. Remove that, DPS goes back to being a popular but cosmetic role. The support become OP with an off tank to make sure they're safe. Just balance the healing numbers. It's really not that difficult. Remember how poorly support's positioned at the beginning of Overwatch 2? It wasn't really positioning that was a problem. It was their positioning wasn't in an aggressive DPS angle to preemptively fight that angle off of the DPS because they are more powerful DPS. Their positioning wasn't actually that bad. Their positioning was backline like they normally wanted in Overwatch 1, and maybe they do some poking at the backline in order to get some throughput and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, the support player base has got a lot better over time. But realistically, saying they were badly positioned, I don't think that's true. They were a good position for what came before. Supports are my major concern. On the offensive side, I potentially like the DPS passive more in 6v6 and in 5v5, but it exacerbates a format that already requires your supports to spend more time healing. Curious is a middle ground. Yeah, we could actually balance the game instead of just putting a passive in so that we didn't have to balance the game. I think the issue is some tank heroes require teamwork and some don't. Sighog. The issue for what? Realistically, yeah, we always have to balance the combinations that don't require teamwork and our static combinations that stand in a place against the combinations that require you to press buttons at the same time in order to displace the defensive or the static combinations, right? Throwing a Wisdom with a Zarya bubble is a higher SR demand than just standing on high ground in the first place. I agree with that. Were supports always safe in Overwatch 1, or did Overwatch 1 have cogent team positioning flow that was lost in Overwatch 2? Yeah. Yeah, when everything is around you, you have to push out an angle. But in Overwatch 1, we were more or less draw the line. You're here. This is the pressure zone. Everyone can stand outside this pressure zone. And then if we are in straight line in Overwatch... Go away, Spilo. Do you think you're invited to my Marvel Rivals molding stream? Spilo, please save Marvel Rivals. Their educational sphere is cooked. They are just reiterating 2016 Overwatch comments. This doesn't look like Rivals, buddy. We'll get there. We'll get there very soon. For now, we're grilling competitive Overwatch being completely useless at BrainThink. There's actually an interesting one here. I'd agree that DPS feels worse because DPS has less space. And I think this is the one that I got into an argument with somebody in the comments for saying specifically, what I said was, the tanks having more health because they buff them means that the DPS has less space. And somebody got into an argument with me saying the DPS doesn't have less space because of the health pools, and the health pools doesn't make a difference. And I'm like, what are we talking about? If you buff the health pools of the tanks, they can walk at you more. Where are we? What's happening here? What is this? Yeah, I think the Marvel Rivals honeymoon period is going to wear off faster. Yeah, I think it's going to wear off faster. I think 2.5 months is about what I'm looking at. For Overwatch patches, it's about 1.5 months at the moment, where everyone loves Overwatch and every single patch and says, no, just give it a bit of time. Season 9, I'll just give it a bit of time. It was about 1.5 to 2 months there until people were okay to criticize it and okay to receive criticism without being very reactive to any criticism as a like, just wait, the devs are going to fix it, etc, etc. Rivals, I think, is a more fun game than Overwatch Classic though, maybe the hot take. No, I kind of agree. I've had more fun on Rivals, but your and my mind are completely fucking cooked, and I don't get any enjoy out of an ultimate in Overwatch anymore, and at least in Rivals I have more interesting ultimates to kill the enemy team with, so I get some joy out of that, right? There's more fun heroes than Overwatch Classic. I think the heroes are just bloated, personally. Bloated and boring for the most part. They have too much in their kits. So, poke spam feels a lot easier. And this, by the way, is Spylo's fault. I'm going to say this is Spylo's fault. This is Spylo's fault for not, stabbing the devs, twisting the knife, and saying, the Season 9 health pools. Because I do blame quite a lot of it, of the increased health pools, and therefore the more spread out nature of the game. And the fact that the tanks can more easily contest off angles and have a better matchup individually against every single DPS when they're supported lightly as a Spylo common L. That's what I think. A common L, because I'm no Season 9 shill. Yeah, but you weren't a Season 9 hater, were you? you were. Yeah. I'm not saying it. I'm not causing drama. I'll carpet bomb Blizz next time. My bad. Yeah. You should. I'll just let. Yeah, I won't say fence it. I'll just let other people say it. Whoa, toxic. Jesus Christ! I thought you were meant to be a. I thought you were meant to be a PMA streamer who had no problems, who didn't cause beef with other people. Jesus, Spylo. Whoa.